Good evening and welcome to this discussion on APM where we'll be doing these are not past exam questions, but these are questions from the study hub and they do reinforce, quite a lot of interesting points about the APM syllabus. Okay, so actually, this is not how a question will come in the paper because the entire question cannot be on benchmarking. But out of 25 marks, 7 to 8 marks, or out of 50 marks, a portion can be on benchmarking. So it will serve as a good practice point. Assess the progress of the benchmarking exercise to date, explaining the actions that have been undertaken and those that are still required. Evaluate as far as possible Ganymede University's benchmarked position. Evaluate the benchmarking exercise carried by Ganymede. So they are asking you what? The verb here is evaluate the benchmarking exercise carried out by Ganymede. So benchmarking has happened. You have to see whether it has happened in the right way or not. Point one. Second thing, evaluate as far as possible Ganymede University's benchmark position. So I'm sure what they have done is they have positioned the entity vis-a-vis some other entity which they might have considered as the gold standard. They want you to check whether the how that evaluation comes across. Okay. And assess the progress of benchmarking exercise to date. You have to comment on how far it has progressed, explaining the actions that have been undertaken and those that are still required. Now, look at this. Ganymede University is one of
Sir, I have a small doubt.
yeah.
So, what is the difference between the question B and C? I'm getting confused actually how to interpret the question.
Okay. So evaluate as far as possible Ganymede University's benchmarked position. So uh, they let's read it. See what they have done is they have compared it with two other universities, right? So this part they want you to comment on how does the university stand with respect to the other universities. Okay. They are not asking you they are not asking you to comment on how well the exercise has progressed. Part 3 may they want you to comment on the process, as in have they done the process correctly. Part B may they are saying this company has been benchmarked with respect to some other gold standard in the industry. Evaluate whether that positioning, that evaluation is that place, where they have put it, if that is a 10 on 10, this is a 6 on 10, how correct is that? So that's the difference in the two questions.
Okay, okay, sir,
ठीक
got it.
है? Of course, when we read the details, we'll understand better. Ganymede University GU is one of the three largest universities in T-land, which has 8 universities in total. All of the universities are in the public sector. GU obtains the vast majority of its revenue through government contracts for academic research and payments per head for teaching students. The economy of T-land has been in recession in the last year, and this has caused the government to cut funding for all the universities in the country. In order to try to improve efficiency, the chancellor of the university, who leads its executive board, has asked the head administrator to undertake an exercise to benchmark GU's administration departments against the other two large universities in the country, AU and BU. The Government Education Ministry has supported this initiative and has required all three universities to cooperate by supplying information. Okay. The following information has been collected regarding administrative cost for the most recent year. What is in front of you? They have information regarding administrative cost, contract management, laboratory management, teaching facilities, student support, teacher support, accounting, human resource, IT, general services, and student numbers, staff numbers, and research contract value. The key drivers of cost and revenue have been assumed to be research contract values, student numbers, and total staff members. The head administrator wants you to complete the benchmarking and make preliminary comments on your results. First question, assess the progress of the benchmarking exercise to date, explaining the actions that have been taken and those that are still required. Now, see, the table by itself is not of much use unless you know the background. So let's revisit that. There are 8 universities, all in the public sector, and I hope you can see the screen. vast majority of its revenue through government contracts for academic research and payments per head for teaching students. The economy of Thailand has been in recession, and this has caused the government to cut funding to all the universities. In order to try to improve efficiency, the Chancellor has asked the head administrator to undertake an exercise to benchmark GU's administration department against the two large universities in the country, AU and BU. Okay. The head administrator or the chief executive, whoever he is, he has asked you कि how should you perform the benchmarking exercise? You should benchmark what? The administrative departments. Okay. You should benchmark the administrative departments of GU with those of the other two universities, AU and BU. Okay. And Government Education Ministry has supported this initiative and has required all three universities to cooperate by supplying information. They are asking you progress of the benchmarking exercise. Assess the progress means tell us how far have we progressed in terms of the benchmarking exercise, and then what are the steps that are yet to be done. Now, if the question is asking you, tell us how far has the benchmarking exercise progressed, how far or what have we achieved so far, I think as a starting off point, we should write down or we should understand what are the steps in the benchmarking exercise. ठीक है. Do you recollect the steps in the benchmarking activity? कुछ specific steps है कि कुछ भी लिख सकते हैं? What do you think?
Specific steps.
There are, of course, specific steps. What are these specific steps in benchmarking? Don't worry, I'll open the study text. ठीक है. And I'll show the steps to you. These are the steps. Set objectives and determine which areas or functions to benchmark. Step 2, identify key performance indicators and drivers that will be measured during benchmarking. Select organizations, partners for benchmarking comparison. Measure performance of all organizations or partners involved in benchmarking using measures identified in step 2. Measure own performance and compare it to the benchmark. Identify gaps in performance. Specify actions required to close the gap, and implement and monitor actions. Now, for the ease of answering, now I'm taking this screenshot and putting it in the Excel sheet. Look at the language of the question. What have they asked you? They are saying assess the progress of the benchmarking exercise. 7 steps में से how many steps are done? Talk about that, and then talk about what actions are yet to be undertaken. First thing, set objectives and determine which areas or functions to benchmark. See, first of all, let's go to the starting paragraph, okay? And let's stick to these steps. Step 1, set objectives. Do they have an objective in mind? Look at para 1 and 2. Tell me, do they have an objective?
Yes, to
What is
improve
the objective?
efficiency.
Yes, the objective is to improve efficiency. And have they decided on the areas to benchmark?
Yes, administration departments.
Administration operations of the teaching and research administrative expenses relating to this part. So setting objectives and deciding the areas to benchmark, that is done. Now look at the second step. Second step is identify the key performance indicators and drivers that will be measured during benchmarking. Now, drivers that will be measured during benchmarking. The following information has been collected regarding administrative costs and drivers. Have they identified the drivers?
Yes.
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 Student numbers, staff numbers, research contract and value. But see, they want to benchmark. The Chancellor of the university, who leads its executive board, has asked the director to undertake an exercise to benchmark GU's administration departments against the two large universities. And government is supporting it. They are trying to look at two things. Na? What are the things they are trying to look at? Government contracts for academic research and payments per head for teaching students. That is how the company obtains revenue. यहाँ पे drivers जो है, they have given drivers in under one head, but they have not distinguished between administrative staff and teaching staff. So that could be one shortcoming. But otherwise, step 2 फिर भी I can see them having achieved that step, which is Key performance indicators and drivers. Drivers they have written, and these look like key performance indicators to me. Then step 3 is selecting organizations for benchmarking comparison. Are there any guidelines usually in place for selecting which organizations to benchmark against? कुछ ऐसा rule है? Now, when you select any other entity for benchmarking, they have to be doing this either the same activity or similar activity that you are doing, right? They have to do same activity or similar activity that you are doing. What is happening here? They have covered two big universities, and it can be justifiable if they have similar research areas, similar teaching, similar everything. Okay. And smaller universities they have excluded because they might not cover the same areas of research and the same subjects for teaching. It may be that there are other universities also from which you could pick up good practices, but right now this seems like a fair choice. I think step 2, select organizations for benchmarking comparison. AU and BU seem like decent organizations to go with because they are of large size, which means they would be covering different courses. Just make sure that you write about the fact that they should have similar courses and research areas which are like this university. ठीक है. So वो एक part you will have to include that with a caveat somewhere. Then what is the fourth step? Measure performance of all organizations partners involved in the benchmarking using measures identified in step 2. What is happening here? See, the basic data has been gathered as required by government. And see, यहाँ पे because you have government support ना, देखो यहाँ पे लिखा है government education ministry has supported this initiative and has required all three universities to cooperate by supplying information because it is government directive that has come in. I think the two universities they had to give their data. If you were operating in the private sector, obtaining this type of information would have been a very difficult exercise. What do you think? I believe private universities में ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम होता है ना.
Yes.
Private universities are a bigger problem. This doesn't seem like that big of a problem to me. So things have become easier because of a government directive. And have you measured performance of all organizations? You have all the comparative figures with you. Correct. सारा comparative figures आपके पास है. So in a way, that does make your life a little easier. Then fifth step, measure own performance and compare it to benchmark. Identify gaps in performance. What do you think? Compare own performance with the benchmark and identify gaps in performance. Has that happened already?
No.
Sharwani, what do you think? Has that happened?
No, sir.
What
I
makes you
think
say that?
because they have not yet actually compared their results with other universities' results, and they have not yet identified the gaps.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Then specify actions and close the gap. No, I don't think that has occurred yet. It should lead to identification of areas for improvement. If Geo is not demonstrating leading performance, then it should identify what are the things that others are doing, right? So that I see hasn't happened here. Then implement and monitor improvements. ये तो बात की बात है. This is yet to happen. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to a great result, to a great extent have taken place, but 5, 6, and 7 have not taken place. This is your first level analysis of the question. Now, how should you frame your answer? I'll write it in the adjacent sheet. First of all, see, what are they asking you? Assess the progress of the benchmarking exercise to date, explaining the actions that have been undertaken and those that are still required. The benchmarking activity primarily expects the organization to undertake the following 7 steps in the order specified. Okay. So write down one लिखो, फिर 2 लिखो, फिर 3 लिखो. ठीक है, ऐसे करके राइट डाउन टिल 7. So you have written down the steps of the benchmarking activity, write down all the 7 steps and then evaluate whether each step has been completed or not. Okay, so 7 steps I'm not writing now, because you can copy them from here. But let's now evaluate whether each step has been fulfilled or not. GU has set the objective of improving efficiency and it is benchmarking all of its administrative or administration operations with respect to teaching and research. Okay. So you can write down the first step has been successfully completed. Okay. Then second step, identify the key performance indicators and drivers that will be measured during benchmarking. The performance drivers have been given to you and indicators are based on the performance drivers. Okay. So performance drivers have been provided to us and the performance indicators are based on the activity per driver. So then you will have to explain or state that second step has been successfully completed. See, here student numbers and staff numbers. Okay. The key drivers of cost and revenue have been assumed to be various student numbers and total staff numbers. The head administrator wants you to complete the benchmarking exercise. See, staff numbers are given to you. I think it would be better if you have a split of admin staff and teaching staff. So you can mention that shortcoming. However, it would aid our analysis better if we had a split of teaching staff and admin staff. So second step complete हुआ, but if you feel that there is a shortcoming there, highlight that. Let's talk about the third. Select organizations or partners for benchmarking comparison. ठीक है. So GU has identified AU and BU as entities for benchmarking. ठीक है. GU has identified AU and BU as entities for benchmarking. AU and BU are sufficiently large universities and These would be considered as appropriate for benchmarking, provided they are into providing similar courses. एक तो they should be providing similar courses, and maybe providing similar courses, teaching similar subjects, something on that count. Similar courses and also provide similar research facilities. ठीक है. So mention why do you think these are your appropriate entities when it comes to benchmarking. ठीक है. Now there are certain smaller universities are excluded, and is there a reason for excluding smaller universities? Maybe because they have like very limited courses, or they have a narrow focus, which is why they might not be the right fit. Okay, now smaller universities might not be the right fit for benchmarking. Mention the reason. ठीक है. So this is step 3. अब step 4 देखो. Measure performance of all organizations or partners involved in the benchmarking using measures identified in step 2. So basically, data has been gathered as required by government. Data has been gathered as ठीक है. Data has been gathered as required by the government due to government directive. It has become easier to collect this data. ठीक है. Then mention about the challenges that might come in private sector. ये mention कर दो. ठीक है. Now let's talk about step 4 successfully completed. ठीक है. अब step 5, measure own performance and compare it to the benchmark. Identify gaps in performance. Could you say that getting this data, is it a step towards measuring performance, or this is just data collection? What do you think? Is there any calculation, or this is just data collection? What do you think?
Yeah.
This looks more like data collection. But see, at the same time, you are comparing na research cost में contract management 14,430 by GU, 14,574 by AU, 14,719 by BU, accounting में 1,614 by GU, 1,571. So comparison तो हुआ है. Comparison has happened, data has been collated, and performance has been compared, but you have not yet identified the gaps in performance. That we can definitely say. Step 5 में क्या है? Measure own performance and compare it to the benchmark. ये हो गया है. That is why you have juxtaposed the data side by side. GU, AU, BU, वो part हो गया. But अभी आपको identify कर the gaps in performance have not been identified. See, data for GU as well as that for AU and BU has been collated and the performance of the entity, or rather, and comparison of performance has already happened. However, the gaps in performance have not been identified yet. वो एक स्टेप है जो नहीं हुआ है. Then next step, specify actions to close the gap. No. Gaps not identified clearly, and so no steps have been specified for closing the gaps, if any. So step 6 not done. Here I can say step 5 partially done. Last one, implement and monitor actions not possible. But see, that is not all. They have also asked you, yahi nahi pucha hai. And those that are still required, that means you have to speak about what is still required. है ना? So just saying that step 6 is not done is not enough. You will have to explain what is required in step 6 and you will have to explain what is required in step 7. Okay? So step 6 not done, gaps not identified, all of that is okay. But then what should you do to tackle it? You should go ahead, identify the best practices and try to implement those. That is how, gap coverage will happen, right? If you have identified that entity AU is the, it's the gold standard for activity of some activity, then you should go in depth. You should identify what is it that makes the process the best, and then you should try to implement that at GU also, right? That is the next step that you should answer. And when we talk about implementing and monitoring improvements, see अभी तक वो भी नहीं हुआ है ना. So mention clearly that implementing and monitoring वाला step has not happened. Point 1 followed by ये नहीं हुआ है तो what should happen? Tell us the ideal this thing. Okay. So let's go back. अरे, implement and monitor improvements. Not completed yet. ठीक है. Then management should perform a post project review. है ना? To identify where all has improvement been achieved. Have you been able to achieve the improvement target? Have you exceeded the improvement target? And whether the improvement targets were exceeded or whether they fell short. ठीक है? Of course, you will have to consider the lessons learned from the project. Also, consider the key takeaways. So what was the point? Assess the progress of the benchmarking exercise. So you spoke about what is the level of progress And then you also identified, you spoke about the actions taken and the actions that are still required to be taken. You explained that in detail. Okay, I want you to read the steps one by one. Thoda sa I'll reduce the magnification. You can read it in one go, and then we'll move on to the next part. ठीक है? Yes. Oh God, just 1 second now. I'll just switch off the AC. Just give me 1 minute. आप पढ़ लो.
Can you scroll down a bit, sir?
Sure.
Done, sir.
Okay. Chalo. I'm deleting this now. Evaluate as far as possible Ganymede University's benchmarked position. Okay, so they have already done this benchmarking, as in they have compared themselves with other universities. You have to do what? You have to evaluate Ganymede University's benchmarked position. I believe this is quite similar to the questions that we used to do in PM. वो आता था ना performance measurement. I believe this is pretty similar to that. ठीक है, चलो, let's do the analysis now. Let's look at items line by line. What? So you have all these costs that are mentioned here. Okay, let's talk about contract management cost. Contract management. So there's research. Research, may there is 14,430 contract management, laboratory management. Two things have been given to you. Now, and then they have given you teaching facilities, student support, teacher support, accounting, human resources, IT management, general services and total. ठीक है. अब so how should we now do the how should we do this analysis? See, there are three drivers given to you: student numbers, staff numbers, and research contract value. Now, say for example, something like teacher support services. Okay, teacher support services ka cost, then student support services ka cost. Student support services ka cost can be linked to student numbers. टीचिंग फैसिलिटीज मैनेजमेंट and teacher support services ka cost can be linked to staff numbers. What do you think? Is that possible? No, we'll have to see there is a driver and then there is a number. That number links to some driver, right? So the research cost can be linked to the contract value, right? Then teaching facilities, ये देखो, what costs are linked to teachers? I think teaching facilities are linked to teachers. Even teacher support services are linked to teachers or no? Student support services are linked to teachers. किसके साथ connect करेंगे? I think teaching facility, student support, and teacher support, all these can be linked to staff numbers. And uh, maybe student support ko if I might want to link it to student numbers. Let's see. Other categories could be linked to what? Accounting, human resources, IT management, and general services. इसको किसके साथ link करूं?
Research contract value, maybe.
How, what is the connection? See, contract management and laboratory management, I believe, is very closely connected. Correct. But इसको कैसे connect करने का? How to connect this? For example, teaching facilities management, could it be linked, or student support services? I believe इसका close connection student support services का होना चाहिए with student numbers. So student support services cost per number of students, or teaching facilities management or teacher support services, ये तीनों का मिला के it could be with respect to number of students enrolled. And बाकी के जो categories है accounting, human resources, then IT management, what could I link this with? I think I could link it better with the total number of staff, because see drivers तो सिर्फ तीन ही है, student number, staff number and research contract value. These are the only drivers. So इसी के साथ link I'll have to establish. What do you think would be the most appropriate links? Tell me. ये part we have established beyond reasonable doubt. Which part? Let's put it with green color. Research has got connection with research contract value. ठीक है. Then general service, IT management, human resources, accounting. I believe these will have a close connection with staff numbers. Accounting, human resources, IT management, general services. इनका connection बैठेगा with staff numbers. Student numbers का कैसे करेंगे? Student numbers will drive what? It will definitely drive student support service. What do you think about these two, teachers, facilities management, and teacher support services? Can they be linked to number of staff or should they be linked to number of students? What drives them?
Sir, I think about the teaching facilities, because those facilities are for the students, that can be driven through student numbers. But I think teachers' support services should be driven with staff numbers.
Just check whether they have mentioned anything. The key drivers of cost and revenue have been assumed to be research, contract values, student numbers, and total staff members. They haven't done that breakup. Head administrator wants you to complete the benchmarking. Sharwani is saying कि teacher support service relate with staff numbers, whereas the teaching facilities, because the teaching facilities means things like teaching tools and laboratories and smart boards and all of that, they are closely connected with student numbers. So that I understand. So let's do it this way. Students, एक minute. Teaching facilities connected with student numbers. Student support services also connected with student numbers. Teacher support services is left. Teachers support could be linked with both. चलो वो थोड़ा बाद में देखते हैं. At least let's focus on the items that we have already identified. So, part B. What are we evaluating in part B? we are checking Ganymede University's benchmarked position. ठीक है. So let's first of all connect the drivers with the cost. Now, research category costs are closely linked with research contract values. ठीक है. Then costs like accounting, HR, IT and general services. Costs like accounting, HR, IT services and IT management and general services. These are driven by number of staff members and teaching facilities. Student support services are driven by student numbers. Teaching facilities, student support costs are driven by student numbers. With this part done, we'll now have to do some calculations. है ना? GU, AU, BU. ठीक है. Let's talk about research costs. Can I say contract management cost per or contract management cost 14340? 14340. Here I have 185. इससे क्या मिलेगा? Contract management cost per research contract value and laboratory management cost per dollar spent on or dollar earned on research contract. ठीक है. So research cost में what I will write down is contract management cost. Contract management cost per dollar of contract value and laboratory management cost per dollar of contract value. ठीक है. अब what am I doing? I am doing 14,340 divided by 185. Then 41810 divided by 185. So 41810 divided by 185. Then 14574, 42897. 14574 and here I have 42897. 42897 divided by 167. And 152 है. 14719 divided by 152. 14719 divided by 152. Then 42646 divided by 152. 42646 divided by 152. Now, what does this tell you? This is a basic calculation. ठीक है. So, for every dollar of contract revenue, this is my contract management cost, contract management cost, contract management cost. So, who is best at keeping costs under control? GU, AU की BU?
GU.
GU, right? Because in GU, for every dollar of contract revenue, uh, this is the, एक मिनट, इसको ना हम लेट्स, दिस इज 14340 के बाद 000 एंड डिनोमिनेटर में है 185 मिलियन। Okay. So it's very clear that GU is better at cost control as compared to AU and BU. ठीक है. It might indicate that government monitors cost control and that GU should continue its practice in this area. Correct? I'll write it here, okay? From the comparative data, it is apparent that GU is better at cost control as compared to other two universities, as can be seen from the adjacent calculations. The costs per dollar of contract value are lowest in GU as compared to AU and BU. This practice is, or maybe, a government might be looking at cost control and might be looking at cost control in times of recession, and GU should continue its cost control measures. ठीक है? Cool.
Yes.
Now let's look at the other data, staff numbers and all of that. इसका क्या करेंगे? Spending on teaching facilities and student support per number of student. ठीक है? Student related costs. What will I write here? I will write down teaching facilities management per number of student. Teaching facility management costs per number of student. Then student support services, teacher support services. Student support services and teaching facility management cost per number of students. 26993 upon 28394. 26993 के बाद 000. 26993 000. Then 2002 000. And 4005 000. Divided by 28394. ठीक है? Can you do the same calculation for the other two? Calculation करो and can you tell me the number?
So I've done the calculation for AU.
Chalo, tell me.
So for the teaching facility management, it is 1196.6.
1197. Okay.
And then it's 89
Hmm.
and 180.
Okay. And for BU?
I'll do the calculation.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir, I missed a bit. Where are we?
We are on this calculation, na, student related cost, teaching facility management cost per number of student. We are doing that calculation.
Okay, sir.
So 26723 divided by 8197. 26723 divided by 8197. My God. Have I gotten it right or I have done something wrong? 26723 divided by 29061 होना चाहिए. This is 920. Then 2132000. Triple 441 divided by 29061. Now what do you want to comment? Data तो कर लिया. Now can you comment on this?
So again, GU is more cost efficient than AU and PU.
Who spends the most on teaching facilities and student support?
BU.
AU.
AU, I think, spends the most on everything. And who has the does AU have the highest number of students? No. In fact, AU has the least number of students, and still AU spends the most on this. Because it spends the highest on, teaching facilities and student support. The expectation is that AU would have the highest number of student enrollments, but it has not happened, which means that these factors don't play such a significant role in the number of student enrollments, right? The spending per student with respect to each of the three costs is lowest for GU. The spending per student is highest in case of AU. Although AU has the lowest number of students amongst the three. Normally, it would be expected that the university which spends most on the students would end up attracting the highest number of enrollments. But this analysis has proven that there is not a significant correlation between the two. ठीक है, this is another one. ठीक है, अब ये तो हो गया. Anything else that you can say here? See, one point. See, when you spend more on students, it is likely that they will get better skills as compared to other universities, and that could lead to better placements and lower dropout rates. Have they mentioned that anywhere? ये कहीं लिखा है क्या? Check करो about dropout rates or anything.
No, sir.
No, sir.
There has been no statement whatsoever with respect to that. So benchmarking exercise में these qualitative factors have not been captured. You can mention that high spending per student is likely to lead to lower dropout rates and high or high से ज़्यादा better placements. However, this parameter has not been captured by the benchmarking activity conducted. ठीक है, अब लास्ट कैटेगरी पूछा क्या था? इवैल्यूएट एज फार एज पॉसिबल गैनीमेड यूनिवर्सिटीज बेंचमार्क पोजीशन. यू आर इवैल्यूएटिंग द पोजीशन विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू द अदर एंटिटी. ठीक है, अब वन एक्सरसाइज दैट आई वांट यू टू डू इज accounting, human resource, IT management, general services. These have to be calculated with a reference to staff numbers. So can you perform this calculation? A cost per staff member. Take a minute. I'll just fetch my water bottle and then we'll continue. तब तक आप ये calculation कर लो. What? Accounting cost, HR cost, IT management cost, general services cost per number of staff member. ठीक है? Please start. Chalo, let's talk about other costs. Other costs calculated per staff member. What are all these other costs? This is accounting, human resources, IT management, and general services. Can you tell me the numbers?
For Geo, it's 204,
Okay,
156, 817, and 2153.
okay. Then,
For AU, it's 204,
mhm,
156, 803,
mhm.
and 2087.
And for BU,
197, 191,
okay.
737,
Mhm.
and 2286.
Okay, now what can we comment? Let's go item by item. In accounting services, I think all three universities are more or less similar, with BU achieving a certain cost saving, right? In human resources, what can we say? BU is costlier, right?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
In human resources, BU is costlier, and BU also has a larger staff, if I'm not wrong. It has more staff, but slightly, not so much. But the costs are quite high. In IT management,
GU is having the higher cost.
GU has higher cost. Any reason why? I mean, can we say something or we should just leave it at that? Kuch reason can we find out?
Maybe the research and the programs conducted in GU needs more IT services than AU and BU.
Correct. Correct. So, accounting costs are almost similar for all three universities, with BU achieving a small cost saving. HR costs are same for GU and AU, whereas BU registers the highest human resources cost between the three. Then IT management costs are higher in GU. This could be because of the fact that GU offers courses which depend more on IT. Okay. And then what can we say about general services?
BU has the highest
BU has the
billing.
highest. And who is the lowest? AU is the lowest, BU is the highest with respect to cost of general services. AU has the lowest cost, whereas BU shows the highest cost recorded. ठीक है. Also, see, comparing costs will make sense, when the base parameters for these are similar. If they are not, then this comparison might not make so much sense. So somewhere you will have to mention that fact. बाकी तो चलो ठीक है. ठीक. This part is for 9 marks. What you did was, most importantly, you linked the cost with the driver. You calculated the cost incurred per unit of the driver, and then you did the next set of explanations. So for each category, you had a set of explanations possible. ठीक है. So this is the next step. Now last point जो पूछा है आपको, what is that last point? That last point is evaluate the benchmarking exercise carried by Ganymede University. Now they are asking you, is the benchmarking exercise done properly? ठीक है. So evaluation of the exercise, now they are asking you कि वो जो process था, was that process done properly? Did you choose the right metrics? Did you choose the right organizations? What did you choose? That is what they are asking you. So now tell me, how will you go about this one?
Shouldn't we go with the step-by-step method?
We can do it that way. Any other way? That would be the safest way possible, I guess. So tell me, have they identified the objective correctly? That was the first step, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And has that happened properly? What do you think?
So we don't have much information about uh, GUs to comment on whether the objective that they have identified is correct or not.
Okay. Then fair enough. We don't have enough information about that. Then the universities that you have chosen as benchmarks, can you say something about that when you are evaluating it from a what you are checking is whether the evaluation activity is done correctly or not. So, what would you say about that? Think from that angle.
I think the university,
Yes, go ahead.
because they are in the same industry, almost similar industry, and they are the biggest universities in the country. So it would be appropriate to measure with universities which are almost similar to the work that GU does.
Okay. But that is an assumption we are making, right?
Yes.
Ki they are in the same field as this university. Would so we are saying that the performance is comparable on the assumption that the universities carry out similar activities. So, ठीक है, that is a starting point. Then, see, use of similar organizations as benchmarks makes the comparison easy or doable, but benchmarking is more effective if it is done with the gold standard of that sector, right? If it is done with the best in class organization of that sector. And it is quite possible that they are involved in slightly different activities, but they have the highest levels of efficiency. Here you are comparing it with two universities, but there is nothing to show that they are the best universities in the segment, right? Even if they are slightly different, it would be fine as long as they are the best. There is not benchmarking कब होता है? Benchmarking you are doing only when you are comparing yourself against the best and then finding out whether you are able to achieve that or not ना. यहाँ पे do we have any information to say that University AU and University BU are the best in that particular sector? Do we have any information?
No.
No.
But ideally, that is what should happen, right? That is what ideally should happen. Again, the metrics used here, they are what? Metrics are mostly financial, mostly नहीं, they are all financial and cost based. ठीक है. Objective is to improve. What is the objective? if you observe carefully, you have identified the objective as improving efficiency. Can having only financial performance or cost based indicators be the only way of evaluating efficiency? Ideally, if you observe, they have considered quite a different type, quite a variety of costs. Now, they haven't restricted themselves only to one cost or one area. They have covered general cost also, student dependent cost also, research related cost also, everything they have covered. So I believe that this exercise is fairly in depth and fairly comprehensive. What do you think? कॉस्ट सारे कवर कर लिए एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव वाज एफिशिएंसी efficiency, effectiveness and economy. Efficiency is what? Efficiency is getting the best possible outcome out of the given quantity of resources, right? That is what efficiency means. Have you been able to achieve efficiency here? As in, we might not have been able to achieve efficiency, but the parameters that we have chosen for checking efficiency, are those parameters in line? I believe they are in line. But certain aspects, okay, certain aspects like the one that we highlighted here, spending more on research cost, sorry, spending more on, teaching facility and student support services and all of that, it will not capture items like dropout rates and success in placements and all of that. So that way, it will not prove to be comprehensive. But otherwise, the parameters that we have chosen, they are fairly enough in my assessment. At least I would like to believe with start with that part key. Whatever metrics we have used, those metrics look appropriate. ठीक है. Now what we are doing is, यहाँ पे पूछा था first of all, they had asked us evaluate how far is the progress of the benchmarking activity or comment on that specific part. You did that. उसके बाद you went out for individual performance indicators and you tried and you then evaluated the progress of that particular activity. What did they ask you? They asked you कि यार tell us or evaluate as far as possible the benchmarked position. So you spent time on that and now you are evaluating the benchmarking exercise itself. So you should talk about the ideal benchmarking exercise. For example, one of the points that we did mention was key when you talk of benchmarking activities, you should compare your benchmarking or benchmarking activity should happen with the best in the industry. You are choosing those industries, which are, or you are choosing those competitors which do the same job that you do or which are similar in perspective. That is fine. But for benchmarking to be effective, the comparison has to be with the best, which doesn't seem like what has happened here. So again, you will have to highlight that particular fact here. ये part भी आपको mention करना पड़ेगा. Identify who is the best in the business, even if there are some variations in, activities that you do versus what the other entity does. At least to identify करो. And once you have identified that, then you can do a thorough research. ठीक है? Only then that comparison will make sense. Then metrics are cost based, we know that. But because the objective was to evaluate and improve efficiency, I think, and you have looked at so many different costs, by the way, you will be able to judge the efficiency part. Matlab, for the objective that you have in mind, it should be able to deliver on that objective. Point one. And then of course mention that it's fairly comprehensive, no questions on that one. And but also mention the fact that having only the cost based numbers or financial numbers might pull the focus away from certain qualitative factors which are equally critical in terms of evaluating the performance, specifically because this is a university. The university may placement rates and dropout ratios and all of that, they will also play an important role. So that part of the answer has to be highlighted. This is their expectation in subpart C. ठीक है. This part, the one, एक बार go through it once. We thought we'll do two questions, but 125 marker only took us 1.5 hours of our time. Naturally, it's okay because first time we are doing, we are discussing, so time to लगता है उसमें naturally. Just one moment. ठीक है? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now, with one question based on 3 chapters, we have some more insight into how an answer should be drafted. Let's keep this as a starting point, and the first question that I told you, let's take it up in the next session. All the best for your results tomorrow. Once tomorrow's results are in, I'll also need one day to plan the timings and the schedule for next week. I'll let you know on the group. You continue watching the lectures after that as per the timetable that I have given. Works?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you and all the best.
Sir, one doubt. This Excel file you'll be sharing in the group?
Yes, right now.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.